So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to lose weight by being plant-based and how not to lose your muscle in the process. One of the biggest things I see is folks go plant-based and then they hit what we would like to not have to call, but what it actually is, this level of skinny fat. Or leaner, but they don't have that muscle mass and it's not a great place to be. So please make sure that you are subscribed, you have notifications turned on, you give a thumbs up, you comment below with any questions you have about this, and well, we can just go and dive right in. From about 2018 to 2021-ish, I was plant-based and then I was vegan. Now, the reason why I did this wasn't necessarily to lose weight. In the beginning, it was about animals. I felt very strongly about just if I couldn't take an animal's life, then why would I eat that animal? That's just how I felt. And then I got very heavily into Mastering Diabetes, which is a nutrition program that focuses on reversing type 2 diabetes by having someone take all animal products out and all high-fat products out of their nutrition and just focuses on a heavily whole foods, plant-based diet, almost like a raw vegan diet. And I will tell you what, I lost about 15 pounds. I did not need to lose 15 pounds. But that's a story for a different day. So you want to be plant-based and you also are switching maybe because you want to lose weight. You heard that it is a great way to improve your heart health and increase longevity, wildlife, and you don't want to eat any animal products. That's completely fine too. No judgment from me. Everyone's on their own journey. So we're going to cover 5 big points here. I don't want you to fucking skip around in this video because this is very important, but it makes no sense without the rest of this. And this is a picture of a flower that I drew. So take with that what you will. I'm a very good artist, as you can tell. That is not poop, that is dirt. Anyway, plant-based weight loss 101. So the reason why a whole foods plant-based diet can work for fat loss is because you are eating whole foods, which are minimally processed. What do I mean by this? Well, when you're having processed foods, sometimes it's easier to eat large amount of quantities of things that are overly processed, which happen to make them more palatable. You know, think about things that are mixed with a high carb and high fat ratio, not very satiating. It's easy to overdo it on them. Think of like a donut. It's not sugar, it's just a combination of carbs and fat, but donuts are not vegan or plant-based, although now they make vegan or plant-based versions. So this is the important part. A whole foods-based diet is important because it will help you be satiated and remain full. When you are trying to lose weight, the only way you could do that is by being in a calorie deficit. So it really has nothing to do with being plant-based and everything to do with just happening to be in a calorie deficit. So eating whole foods plant-based makes that easier because you are eliminating like an entire category of food, technically. However, it is also easy to include things that are like vegan-based desserts and treats of that nature, which are still very high in calories. So what I recommend is actually still determining your calories. Even though you're eating whole foods, plant-based, you could still be including some of those delicious, wonderful treats, and that's not to say they're bad and not to say you shouldn't include them. This coffee is terrible. Oh, it tastes like soap. But that is to say that if you calculate your calories, it'll be easier for you to stay focused on things and have an actual idea. So what you can do is you could use a calorie calculator. I have one. You can click below to get a free one, or you could just simply multiply your goal body weight times 12 as a general outline. Now that will give you one number. Then you can add 100, subtract 100 to give yourself a calorie range. As long as you're within that range, you will lose weight. So if you are switching to a whole foods, plant-based diet and your goal is to lose fat, I suggest still calculating your calories because it's still possible, even eating a whole foods diet, to be in a calorie surplus. For instance, avocado is a whole food. However, there's a shit ton of calories in it if you're just eating avocado. One avocado has like 240 calories, maybe a little bit more, a ton of fiber, yes. But if you are including that and only that in your meal plan, peanut butter is something else that plant-based people enjoy doing. Peanut butter is a terrible form of protein because it's just a higher fat content. 2 tablespoons has roughly 180, 190 calories. That's really only 8 grams of protein, but maybe 16, 17, 18 grams of fat. So we have to look at it from that way. What is going to allow us to stay within our calorie range, also still be whole foods and plant-based, right? So that's number one. Number two, plant-based or plant-based. What I mean by this is we have to look at what we're defining as plant-based. I hate to get lost in the weeds here. Some people are plant-based, and that just means they'll eat dairy, they'll eat eggs, they'll eat fish, right? Which can get confusing because then you're not really sure what they're tracking, how their protein goals are going to be. So for our term in this video, we're just saying plant-based as a blanket statement. We'll include that in the vegans and we'll include that in vegetarians. Plant-based just means a large percent of your diet happens to be whole foods, minimally processed, and not very high in animal protein. There's nothing wrong with including eggs in this. There's nothing wrong with including cheese in this, including fish in this. It depends on you and your preferences. It's no moral judgment from me and shouldn't be any moral judgment from anyone else because it's your life. Do whatever the fuck you want. The other side of this is, what's making up a majority of your nutrition? Are you doing whole foods, minimally processed foods, or are you doing, I hate this term, but are you doing like frankenfoods? Basically, different variations of foods that are trying to, be more palatable. I like to put Beyond Meats in this category. I'm not a huge fan of that product. No harm, no foul to anyone who enjoys it. Happen to think it just tastes terrible, but also the calories and the makeup of those things, just you'd be better off technically speaking having a regular turkey burger versus having a Beyond Meat burger, just because of the fat content simply alone in one of those burgers. Are you doing like a bunch of tofu dogs and all of these different things? No harm, no foul, but we can acknowledge that if we look at the back of the labels for those things, we'll find that, well, it could make it harder to be in your calorie deficit. So what are some other options there? Your lentils, your beans, your tofu, your tempeh, your seitan, your protein powders, right? Protein powders is going to be something really important for you. It's something that you're actually using pretty frequently to help you hit your protein goal. Greek yogurt, plant-based yogurt, like we have to look at all those things and consider where we're getting our protein sources from and what we're using within our plant-based diet, which brings me to number three, your supplements. Protein powders will go in this, but we're also going to put it in another section. The supplements that you're using, you have to understand that as someone who is doing a plant-based diet, you're going to be deficient in several vitamins simply because you're not eating meat. Getting blood work can be really, really helpful as you're going through this, so make sure you consult with your doctor. And they'll be able to tell you exactly what you should be taking, but on the whole, usually, a B complex is something that most plant-based folks could use because you're not eating things that have high or large amounts of vitamin B in it. B complex, vitamin D, you could get D2, I believe, is animal derived. D3 comes from algae, or maybe I have that flipped backwards. Either way, you can use Google and figure it out, or just ask your doctor about it. You're gonna probably need to supplement. It does not matter if you're getting sunlight. When you get your blood work done, you'll probably find that you are deficient in vitamin D. I eat a lot of meat and I eat a lot of vegetables and I am deficient in vitamin D, so I take a vitamin D supplement. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. What else could you be deficient in? It depends. Probably iron. Iron is something you could easily be deficient in because you're not eating any animal-based things. You could also find that your creatine from food, usually meat-based products, is going to be lower too, and that's something you can supplement in as well if you're looking to take as much advantage as possible of making gains within the gym, specifically your strength and building lean muscle. That's going to be important because we're going to talk about that in the last section, but you want to keep that in the back of your mind. Even though you're going plant-based and you're trying to lose weight, you still want to make sure you're building muscle in the process, and we'll talk about why that's so important and why that's a big part of plant-based weight loss 101. We need to understand this because the same principles apply that would apply if you were just eating whatever and trying to lose weight. Number four, this is the biggie that trips up a lot of people because there's a lot of misinformation out there. If we want to build lean muscle mass, if we want to preserve muscle mass, and if we want to fucking stay full while we're in this calorie deficit, hitting protein is going to be important. Now, there are some people out there that say consuming plant-based proteins is more than enough. I would argue that yes, it's still protein. The body still recognizes it as protein, but the amount you need to consume is far greater than if you were to eat something that was animal-based. We have to agree upon that. But because the volume is so much larger, here's where the problem runs in. And I'm going to try to write at the same time. If someone who is not plant-based, but we're still going to assume you're the same person, was trying to consume enough to hit their total protein goal for the day, right? So we have our calorie range, we want to hit our protein goal. If we're able to do those two things, I'm not really worried about fiber for you because you're plant-based. And if you're plant-based, you're getting more than enough fiber. But just as a rule of thumb, for every 1,000 calories, you want to hit about 15 grams of fiber. An average is for women about 25 to 28 grams of fiber per day. For men, about 35 to 38 grams of fiber per day. But if you are eating whole foods, like plant-based, whole foods, minimally processed things, you're going to get a shit ton of fiber from fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, legumes, grains. Like, you can get it from a ton of places, and we have to also accept that because you are plant-based, your carb intake is going to be much higher. That's okay because it still ends up working out. For protein, the way we would determine our protein goal, and again, if you get my calorie calculator, which is free, you could just click below and download it and it does everything for you. But if you were to aim to hit protein for your fat loss, you would want to aim from anywhere from I'm going to write this over here, 0.7 to 1 gram. 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per goal body weight. Per goal body weight. The reason why we use goal body weight instead of current body weight or lean body mass like that you currently have is because if you are someone who is trying to lose weight, telling you to try to consume like 400, 300, 250 grams of protein in one day is really, really overwhelming and also not likely to happen. And also, if you're plant-based, good luck. So what you can see is if you're plant-based, you're probably going to want to be at 0.7. 0.7 times goal body weight. It's a lower end of the spectrum, but it's still protein. Protein and fiber being higher will help you stay full while you're in a calorie deficit, because the goal of weight loss isn't to be hungry all the fucking time. It's to eat as much as humanly possible while still losing weight. Saying, wow, 0.7 is still a lot. That's right. That's why in certain cases, like someone who is a vegan or a raw vegan, I don't really work with anyone like that, but I do work with a lot of vegetarians. Just happens, like a lot of folks come to me. I try to be nutritionally agnostic. That's why I'm even talking about this. What I would suggest is 0.6 for my plant-based friends. I would go with 0.6 and focus on hitting that. So that might take someone from, let's say, 120 grams, might bring them all the way down to 95 to 100 grams of protein. Great. That can be that could be plant-based protein. Now, different sources of plant-based protein I just went over, but you have your tofu, your tempeh, your seitan, you have your you have protein powder, which is an important one. You can get a great plant-based protein powder. I like the one from Legion Athletics. It's the only one that's not chalky. It actually tastes like regular protein powder, and it has the same amino acid profile as regular whey protein. If you don't want to get something like Legion because it is expensive, because it is fucking expensive, you can get any sort of blend of rice and pea protein. The combination of rice and pea protein has a similar amino acid profile to that of whey protein. That's why a lot of people call rice and pea protein together nature's whey, as in you don't need to eat meat to get that same amino acid profile. That's why if you're having something, making sure you're adding those two blends together, like rice and beans mixed together, has the same amino acid profile as regular protein. That works very well. That's why we talk so much about having a blend within our whole foods diet, making sure we can identify what the protein is on your plate, right? So let's say what a balanced plate would look like, because this is going to be most important for you while you're trying to lose fat and you're being plant-based. Right? What we want to understand is that on a balanced plate, ideally what you would have is, to divide the plate in half, you have 50% fruits or vegetables. I'm not really worried about that as much for you. because you are plant-based, but there are some folks who are plant-based and they just really eat vending machine food all the time and consider themselves plant-based. We're aiming for 50% fruits or vegetables. I categorize fruits and vegetables together because, well, no one got fat from eating too much fruit or too many vegetables. 1. 2, most people don't consume enough of it. But if you are predominantly plant-based and you're eating minimally processed foods, 50% of your plate will be fruits and or vegetables. The other 25% of the plate will be protein. The other 25% of the plate will be carbohydrates. Now, the way we want to look at this is if on your plate there is no other protein to be found, right? If on your plate there is no other protein to be found, so there's no tofu, there's no tempeh, there's no seitan, there's no other protein on my plate, then the thing that is a carbohydrate that also happens to be a protein will be my protein. Because if we're just getting our protein sources from only carbohydrates, we're going to find that we could still kind of be sky high in carbohydrates, but our protein could be low because we could be looking at it the wrong way. Things like lentils, things like beans, quinoa, like those are all carbohydrates. Yes, they are, but they also do contain protein in them. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And then you have your fat, which is something that most plant-based folks tend to have very, very high. They'll have a higher fat content and a higher carb content and leave protein very, very low. What I recommend is leaving carbs high, trying to bring protein up and bringing fats down. By bringing your fats down, you're going to dramatically, you'll have an easier time hitting your calorie range. The way it works is fats just tend to be higher in calorie per gram. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, 1 gram of protein has 4 calories. So you can have a bigger wiggle room if you're hitting more, you can basically just eat more carbohydrates than you can fat and be within that calorie range. That's why we're aiming to hit total calorie range and total protein, and we'll throw fiber in there. Like if we hit those 3 numbers and we're within our calorie range, then you have wiggle room with your carbs and fats. Okay, you want to make it easier on yourself. You don't want to make it harder on yourself. So we covered a lot here thus far, okay? And now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, everything else. To stay in your calorie deficit, right? We have to be in our calorie deficit. We need to make sure that we are eating enough while still being in that deficit, while still hitting our protein goal. We need to make sure that we're staying active. Nutrition is the driver of the car. Training is the vehicle. If we don't focus on both together, we only focus on one, you're going to be missing out, right? Because there's a direct correlation between increased step count, and we'll talk about why, and reduced all-cause mortality. Step count just happens to be an easier way of tracking how active you are during the day, right? So if you're taking like 3,000 steps a day and you're doing everything else, well, I would say focus on hitting at least 6,000 steps a day, like get that up. When that gets easier, focus on increasing to 7,500 steps per day. I am beating a drum over and over again, but stay active. That's important. In fact, if you are more active, your calories would probably increase anyway, and you would still lose weight. The fancy term for that is a high flux diet. A high flux diet, or G-flux diet, really just means you're hitting like 15,000 to 17,000 steps a day. You're clearly going to be able to eat more while still losing weight, still build muscle while still losing weight because of your increased energy demands. If we are using more energy throughout the day, well, then technically we're burning more energy throughout the day, which means we need to eat more, even if we're in this calorie deficit, which is really cool if you think about it, if you're someone who has a hard time with all of this. I'm not saying we need to obsess about hitting 15,000 steps a day if it's not doable, but you can definitely hit at least 7,500 steps a day, and anything above that is just like gravy. It's just a cherry on top. We also need to consider our sleep. If your sleep is absolute trash, if you're not getting sleep at all, the likelihood of you losing weight successfully and recovering successfully between training sessions goes in the pooper, goes down the poop chute. And the reason why is because when you lack good sleep or sufficient sleep or deep sleep, your hunger and fullness hormones get all thrown out of whack. Your leptin and ghrelin, they go all over the place, which means you're probably going to get a case of the nom-noms and just eat way more than you actually intend to, and the same pattern can carry into the next day, making it harder for you to make the better decisions that you need to reach the goal that you're working towards. Okay, so keep that up here, keep that in the back of our mind. We want to make sure we're getting at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night. There's going to be a range of things that happen. This kid is doing a couple weeks, which means my sleep is going to go out the window. So we just have to keep that in the back of our mind. Like, things are going all over the place, and sometimes sleep won't be perfect, but we want to try to hit at least 6 hours of sleep. We want to make sure that we're just preserving our lean muscle mass, we stay strong, and that our body has that lean look that we're actually chasing. That's what a lot of people are looking for. And if that's not you, that's okay, but you still want to see other benefits too, such as an increased life expectancy and a reduction in cardiac arrest or cardiac episodes leading to death. There's a whole research paper that just came out, a whole study that they did on women and resistance training and strength training. And research, they found that there was actually a substantial reduction in the likelihood of cardiac events in those women who strength train. That's right, ladies. If you are lifting weights, you are improving your longevity. So, and men, really, it still applies to you too, especially if we're trying to take advantage of our health and our wellness. All the things are going to be added bonuses, okay? So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Plant-based weight loss 101. You're gonna make sure that you're eating whole foods that are minimally processed. Not that processed foods are bad, but that is really where the reduction in calories can come from if we're not tracking, right? I do suggest tracking, and that's why I recommend getting my free calorie calculator, because it's gonna help you track and know exactly what to do. Are you plant-based or are you plant-based? As in, are you just eating a lot of Doritos and things of that nature, or are you fully plant-based? Or are you someone who's plant-based but still eats fish, still eats eggs and dairy, right? You need to just clarify that for yourself so we can know exactly what we're using, what your limitations are, where some of your deficiencies might be, and that's why you have to pay close attention to supplementation. Supplements are not going to make you run faster, leap over tall buildings in a single bound, but they can make it so that you have an easier time within your training sessions and easier time within the rest of your life long term, because you will have some deficiencies if you are fully plant-based. Protein, how much protein should you exactly be having? We talked about this again. 0.6 to 0.7 grams per pound of goal body weight is going to be very helpful, and that can come from various plant-based proteins, right? And we even talked all through about how you can figure that out for yourself, where that's going to come from. And then number 5 is everything else that still applies from if you are trying to lose weight, which is being in a calorie deficit, hitting your protein goal, hitting your fiber goal, making sure you're getting enough movement in during the day, making sure your resistance training, making sure your sleep is on point, making sure you're drinking water, making sure that you're just deleting all the negativity around you, because honestly, high stress isn't going to be great for it either. So if the reduction of animal products in your everyday life reduces your stress level, I say that's only a benefit for you if you are trying to be plant-based and you are trying to lose weight. This is a really fun video to do. It's not something I often talk about, so it was nice to get that opportunity, and I thank you for being here. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, you have notifications turned on, you leave a comment below with any questions you might have about this. I'm more than happy to answer, and give a thumbs up and turn notifications on so you can know when the next video comes out. I might have said that twice. It's okay. Anyway, I just want to say thank you for being here. Remember that you're one day away from getting back on track and one day away from realizing how fucking amazing you are.